so many of you here. We're showing films by female directors from around the world. We're here and at the Tricycle Cinema until Sunday. You can get a programme and merchandise just at the table up front.
Tonight's film, She's Beautiful When She's Angry, was screened in association with Club de Femme. And we have Sophie Mayer here tonight, who's an activist, feminist and writer, whose book is out now, Political Animal. And I'll hand over to Sophie to introduce the film. Thank you very much.
So thank you for enjoying our beautiful Club des Femmes ident for the last 45 minutes. We thought we'd begin with some structuralist cinema to take you back to the 1970s, as Mary Dawes' film will do. And Mary sent us an email today saying hi to everyone here, and she hopes we have a great screening. And she wanted to say special thanks to Amanda Sebastian, who was an early supporter. She'd love to hear what you think about the film. There's a website which has amazing resources on it. The film is on Facebook and it's on Twitter. So if you love the film, if you hate it, if you have questions, you can get in touch with Mary through the internet. She's not here, but we have three fantastic panelists. Emma Dabiri, Lynne Segal and Clarissa Jacob will be joining us after the film. So please stay for what I think is going to be an amazing discussion. Club des Femmes have been wanting to screen this film since we started hearing about it on the American grapevine last year. It screened around the States with the support and in support of Planned Parenthood. But we couldn't get it because the film is struggling to raise the money to pay for the music and archive licensing. So if you love the film and you want to show it in your classes or gift it to friends on DVD or see it on VOD, you can also donate online to their crowdfunder to make sure that this film can get to everyone who needs to see it. So it's really fantastic that Anna has got it for the London Feminist Film Festival. I can't imagine a better place to screen it. And all that remains to say is let the revolution begin. I'd like to welcome our panel to the stage. First of all, Lynne Segal. Next to her is Clarissa Jacob and Emma Dabiri. A round of applause. And that's not really sufficient recognition of all their achievements. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of them while you think about the questions you'd like to ask about the film. So starting from my right, Lynne Segal, I'm sure needs no introduction, but I'm going to give her one anyway. She's a socialist, feminist thinker and activist, a professor of psychology and gender studies at Birkbeck College. This year, Verso republished her landmark book from 1994, Straight Sex, Rethinking the Politics of Pleasure, as part of its Radical Thinkers series. High time that book was back in the world. And 2 years ago, she published Out of Time, The Pleasures and Perils of Aging. As you can tell from the titles of her books, Lynne has always put the pleasure into feminist politics, and it's a pleasure to have her with us on the panel tonight. Next to her is Clarissa Jacob, who I'm hoping is going to be able to tell us a bit more about the print culture that we've seen on screen, all the amazing magazines and posters. She's researching one particular aspect of it, Women and Film, the first ever feminist film magazine, which was founded in California during the early 1970s. She's been researching the magazine for her PhD at Royal Holloway, where she also works on bringing archive film to public attention. And I'm hoping that in a few feminist film festivals' time we'll have Clarissa here as a filmmaker, because she's also making a film about the magazine. It's not finished yet, but you can find out more about it on her blog. So not finished yet. And to her right, we have Emma Dabiri, and I'm sure many of you will have read Emma's brilliant writing in the New Statesman, Media Diversified, Africa is Not a Country, The Voice newspaper, or on her blog, Black Girl Dancing at Lunasa, whose title captures her experiences as an Irish Nigerian woman. And if you haven't encountered her writing yet, don't just take it from me, it's been recommended by Bell Hooks, so go check it out. She's researching a PhD in visual sociology at SOAS and has been a speaker at Women of the World, UK Feminista, Africa Rights, and the BFI's Afrofuturism season. So we have a panel of absolute experts here, and I'm looking forward to handing over to them. I'm going to sit down. And the first question that I want to ask is just for each panellist to say a bit about the image that most struck them from the film. A scene, a photograph, what someone said, something that enraged you or moved you, something that resonated with you. Just tell us why.
That's a trick question, you didn't mention that. I found it all so moving. It kept making me feel tearful, actually, since this was my life. And I just kept thinking, the only thing that's not quite there is the background of the 1960s, the late 1960s, and what produced all that anger. I mean, we saw it actually, maybe the single most moving scene then was all those men screaming at the woman getting up that Ellen Willis talked about. That was so unbelievable. It seemed to be almost every man in the audience was screaming, "Get her off and fuck her," or something like that. And that is where women's liberation came from. It came out of the left, Robin Morgan, goodbye to all that. Everyone saying, these women who'd been working alongside men, who'd been radicalised, for instance, in the civil rights movement, as so many women said, working with those black women, we got another image of what it was to be a woman. It was so important to be part of those freedom movements of the late 1960s, and then to realise you were not seen as a part of it. You were actually there to be fucked and to be silent and to help the men. So that was the most moving moment, and that has changed. We have two women standing to be head of the Labour Party, and so on. That has absolutely changed. Women are there in politics, although, as other people said, so many things have not changed. Every single thing that was won, and almost every demand was won around childcare, around reproductive rights, around women in the workplace. And yet, there is no childcare for so many women. In the States, their reproductive rights has been threatened all the time. In the workplace, women are weeping in the toilets because the working day is so long they don't have time to look after the children because if they have them. And it's such a noxious atmosphere there in terms of work targets and so on. But they're out in the workplace and they don't want to be there, but they don't know where else they want to be. I've probably had my 5 minutes, have I? I mean, obviously, I can just, well, I'm always on the roll. If you ask me a question, I can just keep talking. So I would say it was that moment. And so I guess the great hope is we'll see that moment again. And that's what someone at the end of the film, I've forgotten which one, said, I am so disappointed, so depressed by the things we won and then lost that we have to keep fighting for. But I'm angry. And I don't think we're angry enough now, but in this neoliberal climate, more of us are getting angry, and we have to be careful. We're not going to just let those women up there speak for us in the Labour Party or in the Tory Party, the Louise Menches and so on. We're going to say, this world is not the world we wanted. You mainstreamed us, you incorporated us, but you didn't give us a world which we wanted. And that is what...
I'm going to cheat and say that all the images, mostly because as someone who studied the women's liberation movement in the US particularly, having the visual representations for the marches, for the consciousness raising sessions, of the people that I've read, to see their faces and to hear them kind of testifying to their experiences, when I first saw the film, was so powerful. Oh, that's what they look like. Oh, that's how that played out. And I think that Women of the World Unite on the Statue of Liberty. I think that's kind of awesome. But I think one of my other favourites is Carla J doing Ogling, and what a chapeau. It's just excellent. So I'm just going to say all of it.
Thanks. So I have a lot to say about the film overall. In terms of that question, though, I think I've got quite a short and straightforward answer. And it kind of threw me because I couldn't think of one particular image. But I think I really like the juxtaposition of seeing all these women like when they were young, the archival footage, and then seeing them today. I just found that quite moving in a way. And I love the scene. So what was the woman's name that you said? Yeah, when she's like catcalling the men in Wall Street. That was just like cracking me up, I think. But yeah.
Okay, so one thing that is, I think, quite distinctive about this film, even compared to other documentaries about the US second wave movement, is that it really tries to address some of the fault lines and the diversity of the movement and where those debates were coming up and where they weren't coming up and how it was changing. And I just wanted the panel to speak to any of those instances in the film, or whether you think it's changed today as well. Have we resolved any of those debates, or are we still having them? I can see Lynne's hand.
Oh, sorry, I was just trying to be good. I think it was more diverse then than perhaps it is today, in terms of, it really was so impressive to see the number of black women who were there and who were organising, and in 68, 69, 70, white women were raising money to free the Black Panthers, and Frank Beale is there going into those Black Panther meetings to talk about women's reproductive rights. That must have taken such courage. And then the Puerto Rican women, telling us that a third of women then were sterilised. That was extraordinary stuff. And it's very interesting because now, of course, we're always told this was just a white women's movement, and it's only recently that we've begun to theorise around race, ethnicity, and all the other intersectionalities. But actually, we might be theorising it, but I don't know that we're actually acting on it so well. I mean, with all the women and children drowning in the Mediterranean on our coastline, some people are out there, some people are going to where the asylum seekers are being locked up and so on, but it's still, I don't think that they're anything like as angry, or that somehow, I guess it's that so much of feminism has been academicised, and maybe where we are active women, it's not necessarily simply in feminist groups, it might be in Occupy, it might be in all sorts of different things. So perhaps I'll just say, as a movement today, I think it is easy to talk the talk of intersectionality, but it can be harder to know exactly how to include it. And I find, in the really impressive young feminist groups that I go to, I don't quite hear the actions that are being done, around asylum seekers, around the fact that race, class, and ethnicity, which really were mentioned in the beginning, are still so much the issues today. It is working class women, it is black and ethnic minorities who are still, in their majority, going to be the most exploited today. At the same time as we will have the token figures, we'll have Obama, we'll have the people who apparently are going to be brought out from under. But I think it is harder to think how to have to think as a revolutionary today. To think as a revolutionary, we've had so many disappointments. It's not easy, and so we really are going to have to really try and think about that again. What is it to be something genuinely radical today? And that's got to be embracing all sorts of issues in different ways. That is quite tricky, quite hard.
I think the film does a pretty good job actually of highlighting how complicated and how contradictory the women's movement was, and I think I agree with Lynne that those those issues of race and class and sexuality, they're still issues now, and they're still going to, I don't want to say divide, but they're still going to complicate feminism as a concept today. And I think, you know, if you're a white middle-class woman, feminism is quite straightforward because it's probably the main kind of oppression you would experience. But if you're white and working class, or if you're white, if you're black and working class, it's different. And it's funny because the first time I saw the film, that didn't come across to me quite as much. But watching it again, I think it immediately highlights all the diverse issues and the fact that no one really agreed with each other from day one. So yeah, I think it does quite a good job of that.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm going to be the nitpicky black girl. So I think the film definitely took on board all the accusations that have been levelled against feminism and showed, like, demonstrated an awareness of the issues when it comes to race. But for me, I felt the dealing with race and with black women was kind of tagged on for various reasons. Oh, I'm glad I have support. Yeah, because for instance, from the opening of the film, and the opening frames everything that follows, but the opening completely centralizes the white perspective, that kind of feminist kind of mystique, that the white middle class woman's perspective. That's the opening gambit, and then everything else kind of comes on from there. And I noticed as well that the soundtrack to that scene is a black woman singing a soul song, but they don't see fit to include a black woman speaking in that kind of opening scene that sets the tone, sets the pace. But they still kind of use, I feel, a black woman as a prop, essentially, to kind of demonstrate like the radical revolutionary fervor, or like the soul of the time. But they don't see fit to actually have a black woman kind of narrating it or kind of framing it. So I found that interesting. Also, there are actually quite a lot of things. For instance, they use Nico of the Velvet Underground. Nico's a documented fascist that hated black people. There are noted racist attacks. She attacked a black woman one night because she was jealous, because she was getting more attention than her. She bottled her. It's quite well documented. People might know that. But they use this Nico song with these images of kind of like black power and revolution, and I was just like, maybe they're just not aware, but I found that kind of a problematic oversight, to say the least, to have kind of this like fascist white racists singing over the images. So, let me see. Okay, I've got one more. Sorry, I can probably write a book on this. They mentioned that at one point, someone mentions that black women didn't necessarily feel drawn to the movement, and I don't know that that's something that has greatly changed, because, for instance, I came very late to feminism, primarily because I saw it as something, the people that I saw kind of speaking about feminism that I saw as feminists, I didn't feel that they, I didn't feel they reflected me or my concerns. It seemed very white, and kind of a very specific and particular whiteness. And I thought it was really interesting when Roxanne Dunbar said that she, because she was working class, she was white working class, she kind of read everything through class rather than it being kind of misogyny, reading it through gender. And I would say I had similar experiences. I grew up in Ireland in the 80s, and it was extremely racist. Don't believe the hype about Ireland being the land of 1,000 welcomes. Well, it is for some people, but it wasn't for me. So I experienced a lot of kind of like direct racism pretty much daily, and I didn't experience less racism from women. I think actually because I went to an all-girls school, and because a lot of the racism I experienced was in school, I actually experienced a lot of racism from white women. So I never saw gender as an organising principle of solidarity. But I think I also read a lot of what happened to me as through race, and I think often there was actually misogyny as well, but I was more, as Roxanne Dunbar says, I was more like, oh, this is how black people are treated, rather than this is how a black woman is treated, or a woman is treated. So yeah, I think to wind up. I think the film did attempt to address the problems concerning race and the movement, but to me, yeah, it still kind of fell short. Yeah.
Very well deserved, I think. And thank you to all our panelists on that question. And just to add a note on that, I think it's very interesting that the film makes no reference to the fact that Roxanne Ortiz went on through the feminist movement to identify with her Native American ancestry through her mother and become an indigenous activist. So there's another layer to that story, as well as being white working class. There is an ethnic genocide story that she went on to tell as well, and that's not present in the film. I'm going to turn it over to the audience for questions. And while the mic is roving, I just have one question. It's almost a one-word question. Lynne mentioned actions, and I want you each to tell me which action from the film you would like to revive and you think that we should do today because it would produce change. We've marched. There have been marches for Yards Wood, there were anti-war marches, and it's almost illegal to march now, so what clever actions from the film can we take back from our history and re-perform?
Well, part of me wants to say that Oglen, but I'm actually going to be old-fashioned and say the marching, because I think it's still a really important experience. And you know, I think the film highlights that everyone was kind of working away in different areas and in different cities and in different places and different groups, but that coming together and walking together and there being so many people there was so important. And I think that's still the case when we do so much work online or in a classroom or in a group of friends or whatever. I think it's still really important to go out onto the street, to be honest.
Thanks. I actually just wanted to do that. I don't know how effective it would be, but can we just do it? Maybe we can talk afterwards and arrange to have a hex. Oh yeah, well wait, let's have a giant hex. We count to 3 and hex? Okay, 1, 2, 3, hex! Oh, I'm so psyched.
I think we just have to begin by thinking women's liberation was so confident in those early years. You know, Adrian Rich said, a woman in the shape of a monster in the shape of the woman. The skies are full of them. You know, it really felt the skies were full of them, and that women could say what sort of world we wanted, which was a shorter working day, which was men able to work in the home, which was peace, which was included all people. We've got exactly the opposite of that. We've got the opposite of that. So we've got to try and bring back that confidence that says the world could be different. The world could be different. Even now, though it's hard to believe that. It's really hard to believe that. I mean, everybody is laughing at Jeremy Corbyn because we can't really have what he's asking for. Most people will say, of course we agree with what he's saying, but that's not going to happen. Look what's happened to Greece. That's not going to happen. How can we get back that confidence that change actually is possible? Or that we're going to insist on saying that's what we want? Because actually it may not be possible. It's going to be so hard. But to insist that that's what we want, that's where we have to begin.
Useful, thank you. I think we have time for a few questions from the floor. And if there are questions in the balcony, I'm going to look for you and then come to the front and say them boldly and confidently. So, there's one at the back, in the back row downstairs, and 2 over here, and 1 over here, and 1 over here. Oh!
She was first.
Okay. Thank you.
Straight off the bat. I'm just going to stand up. I remember, thank you so much for everything you've said so far, you're all amazing. And the film is moving but problematic. I'm a member of Sisters Uncut. Are there any other sisters here? I kind of wanted to mention Sisters and ask a question. We're an intersectional direct action radical feminist group in London, hopefully all across the UK soon. Just a couple of weeks we shut down High Street Kensington and burned the Daily Mail. So it's partly as a challenge to Lynne, who I have enormous respect for you and love what you've written, and you're an incredible inspiration to us, but also that it's interesting to me that you don't see the anger, because I'm really fucking angry, and I think a lot of us are, and I see Sisters organising and us getting more angry and movement really emerging over the last few years. But my question to you is, why aren't we cutting through, and why is it so, it was so amazing to see the response that they got, national television, amazing response to their actions, and one of the massive frustrations right now is being so angry and feeling organised and doing things and working with sisters of all different colours and backgrounds and class and feeling like, yes, we can do this, and still not really breaking through, I suppose. So what's your opinion of why that's the case, and why the face of feminism is still so white and middle class in kind of mainstream, despite the grassroots, at least from my perspective, kind of doing quite a lot?
Well, I think the divisions between women are so enormous today. I mean, so many women have been co-opted and brought into the management and running of everything, including me in my university. I don't actually run it, I never have, but nevertheless, I've got a professional job. We've been incorporated. We're in such different positions. There was more in common in terms of women's situation and what they were being denied, being fairly comprehensively denied around reproductive control, around the refusal to recognise violence against women. Of course we know that violence against women is still occurring, but nevertheless, a lot of women do feel separated from that. And so that's why I don't think we can have a feminist movement that doesn't attach itself as part of a radical left movement. I've always felt that though, and always will feel that, but I feel it more than ever today, because so many of us have been totally incorporated into the system. We're likely to have a woman running the world, Hillary Clinton. Forget China now, I'm always told China is overtaking the US. Of course, the US remains the single main imperial country, and we're likely to have a woman running it. So, that's why it's harder to be confidently angry simply as a woman today, simply as a woman. Though I do think that feminist vision of equality, sharing, caring, peace, and commitment to all is still absolutely there and necessary, and I'm sure that's what your group is working on. But I think we do have to rethink it a bit in terms of the present neoliberal climate.
I don't know if I have an answer necessarily, but I think I'd echo what you said in terms of inequality. As inequality widens, the gap widens, it's harder and harder to come together under one banner. And I think, I definitely think, or I have thought at times, that I'm part of a generation that is particularly mollified by consumerism and kind of material concerns. And I think, capitalism is just far more entrenched than it maybe was in 1969. But yeah, I think you have to remain hopeful, and you have to keep active, and you have to keep thinking and questioning, and trying to bridge those gaps. And I absolutely have no answers in terms of how to solve any of those problems. But yeah, I don't know if you want to say anything.
Should we all answer each question, or should we try and get more questions?
Yeah. I'm going to take chair's privilege and take this as an opportunity to thank Rio, because independent cinemas and independent media are part of the answer to your question. That media conglomerates are now even more entrenched than they were, so it's even harder to get any voices out there. This film does not have an American or British distributor. We have 400 people here tonight who wanted to see it, but no distributor in Britain thinks that anyone wants to see this film. So your fight is happening across the arts, across the media, and it's to do with this entrenching of capitalist conglomerates as much as anything else. That's a very depressing thing to say. Maybe if we can hear sort of 2 or 3 questions from the audience, and then we can answer them as a group. So there's a very keen hand here and a keen hand here. And we did start late, so we're not going to have as much time as we hoped.
Hello. Hi, I just wanted to sort of ask both the people on the stage and people in the audience, like, what people think about consciousness raising, like, now, because I think because sexism is a bit more, like, was that sexism, like, women maybe don't think that they, I don't know, would go to a radical feminist meeting because it doesn't seem like a space where they can just be like, this is happening to me every day and I feel really awful about it and I don't know what to do. So I wondered if there are those spaces, and I don't know about them, maybe Sisters Uncut are doing something, where you can just go and talk about the sexism and what you're experiencing in your everyday life, with then at the end of that meeting being like, these actions are happening, we should all go and join this, or these are groups that people could join. Like, I don't know of anything like that exists at the moment. Georgie, hi. We were talking about maybe trying to start something like that, and I just wondered if anyone knew of anything so that we could all learn about it and maybe also do it.
I feel like we need a mimeograph and some stamps. There is a question here, and then one in the very back row downstairs.
I wasn't actually going to ask a question, but just in response, can I say something in response to that? I'm part of an online forum on Facebook with Wolf Whistles, and
We have a lot of wolf whistles.
We're running a day of doing on Sunday the 13th of September about race and feminism, with 4 workshops going on concurrently, so get involved. You can find it on Facebook.
That was wolf whistles. Wolf whistles on Facebook.
Wolf Whistle, yeah.
Wolf whistles.
And Sunday the 13th, so put it in your diaries.
Thank you. And one in the back row, and then the question. Come down to the front of the balcony if you can, so that we can hear you really well, actually.
Okay. Well, on the note of the film being problematic, I was wondering what you guys on stage and the audience think about other things that were left out, for example, trans issues, bisexual issues, like things that get inadvertently invisibilised by their lack of presence, or whether films should just do certain things and do them well.
So, I think everyone heard the question, but it was just about other axes that the film may have left out.
Is what she said.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the question was about whether the film was problematic in terms of other axes or representations it left out. Trans issues and bi issues were mentioned in particular, or whether we have to accept that a document can only be of a certain size and represent a certain amount well, and whether the panel and the audience had thoughts about whether more could have been included. I think that was it.
I think it has to reflect the issues of the time. So the black and white divide, or there being black people, black women and white women, was definitely a huge issue at the time. So in terms of the time, was trans kind of an active issue within the feminist movement, or was it was it a big rights issue at the time? I don't know. But
absolutely not.
it was. Okay.
No, it was not.
It wasn't, I'm hearing. So I was under the impression it wasn't, but I'm not an expert. But yeah, I think it has to reflect the time, rather than kind of projecting issues that are kind of dominant now into the past.
Hi, thank you so much for screening this. I actually missed the US screening when I was in the States, so I'm happy to be able to attend it now. One of the big movements that's happening in the States right now is the Black Lives Matter movement, and particularly I was wondering about the role of social media, because Twitter and Facebook and alternate forms of media have been kind of what's propelling this, because the mainstream media has been largely ignoring it. So I wanted to hear what you think about the role of alternate forms of media, such as Twitter and Facebook, to shape feminist movement organization nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I think about quite a lot, because I'm writing about a magazine which, you know, for a lot of people seems like a kind of rather archaic format, but was actually one of the main motivating, driving forces for a lot of people to become involved in the women's movement. And I think going back to the question before about consciousness raising, I think online space it's not necessarily a perfect forum, but it has become a kind of consciousness raising space, I think. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to.
I think the virtual communications are incredibly significant. I wouldn't go all the way with Paul Mason and see a post-capitalist society already developing there, but an incredible amount is developing there. I mean, we know that's how those revolutions that happened in Egypt and Turkey and Tunisia, really took off through, and the Occupy movements. You get people down there through social media. However, not everyone has access to social media, and so in terms of race, I think, we almost have subcontinents there. We have people whose lives simply are regarded as extinguishable. And that's what you've got with black people in the US. You have a US president who's black, and then you have black people being shot at random and nobody at all being charged. Now that does relate to the trans issue today, because some very active black people are trans people, and they've been really out there on the streets in your face, in those American parades and so on, saying, look at us, and receiving all the contempt, and they're able to actually make a huge impression today in ways in which the trans issue was simply not on the agenda. It wasn't on the agenda then. There were trans people, but it wasn't on the agenda in any way. Of course, not so many people could actually trans in any way back in the late 60s. I mean, we are talking about the late 60s, and I think we have to think about that. Are we in a situation today that's like the late 60s? In many ways, we're in a situation that's much worse. Consumer capitalism was still booming then on the basis of everybody's consumption. Now what's happening is that we're just prepared to write off. This Tory government is prepared to write off a third of the population, as remove everything from them. Really let them starve and then invent ridiculous stories saying, and they feel happy and grateful for us cutting their benefits. So, consciousness raising, I know all sorts of people who do consciousness raising, and particularly on the web, and as an older person today, when there's all sorts of ageism reappearing, the pretense that all older women, for instance, all older people, but particularly affects older women, are well off and living in luxury, when a third of them are living in poverty and going to be losing their benefits and so on. So you are getting a lot of consciousness raising actually going on in older people, older women's groups and other sorts of groups. So I do think a lot is happening, and indeed, if we use the web more, we'll be able to see what it is. But some of us aren't as web literate as others, and I think we do need to get more web literate, actually.
We're gonna have to wind up because the next screening is literally waiting outside. But Emma, I want you to take us to the bridge.
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of follow on from I think what Lynne was saying. I think in many ways things are actually worse today, which isn't kind of a happy ever after ending to finish on. But I mean, these movements happened, and we've still been left with the current situation whereby this just neoliberal, like deeply rapacious capitalism is so entrenched. And our best response to that is a somewhat kind of lackluster repetition of what people did 40 years ago. Like, that's not going to be good enough. I think we really have to be creative in thinking about not just, I think one of the women actually made the point, like we didn't want a piece of the pie, we wanted a new pie, but we just need like a kind of a new paradigm, and we really do need to employ like very like creative and innovative, I can't even say the word, innovative thinking. So yeah, in terms of, you were saying what stunts and stuff did you think might be useful? Marching has really essentially never changed anything. We need a whole new system, structure, paradigm. So yeah.
I don't think marching never changed anything. I think we saw evidence of marching. You changed something back then, actually, but that's not necessarily going to be the only way to change things.
It also shows the numbers.
One panel, 4 feminists, no agreement. This is healthy. We need all these ideas.
All marching happened, and as you raised like Black Lives Matter, the whole Black Lives Matter movement, but if you actually look what's happening to black people on the streets of America, and you say the marching worked, that it hasn't worked. Look at the current like climate, and look at what's happening in the States. It hasn't changed anything.
History isn't linear, though. It goes forward and backward.
That's a lot of what my PhD is about. I'm well aware. I did a TED talk on that. Like, we're in complete agreement. But yeah, I think things have worsened.
I think we're gonna move this to the bar with some non-linear conversations. Please thank the panel. Thank you. We have heard